think we'll pause that.
Over the last 9 years that Kiwimbi has been active in Amagoro and the region there, one of the many, really our core program has been to help the grade 8 students pass the national exam, which has an extremely low pass rate. This is, and this information is available on the internet. Only 2 out of 10 children actually ever pass the grade 12 exam. And this is because they do not get a good primary school background. So we figured out if we can help those in grade 8, then they would be able to go to fairly good schools where they have a better chance of passing. The national average in grade 12 is 2 out of 10. And with our intervention, we were able to actually see really good results in helping the grade 8s to pass in the national exam, but the results appeared to fluctuate because we were not comparing apples to apples. We were comparing a group of children, say in 2020, to a totally different group in 2019, to a totally different group in 2018, and to a totally different group in the previous year. So what we did last year was to create an internal assessment where we would give the exact same group of students a test, an assessment in English and an assessment in math at the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, and then at the end, so that we could directly measure the impact of Kiwimbi's work on assisting these children to become better in English and to become better in math. And for English, our primary effort is around reading, where we get the children to read very many books. Many of these kids arrive in grade 8 unable to read and write. But we're actually happy to report that with our intervention, they quickly learn to read really well. We get them to read hundreds of chapter books. We get them to discuss these books each week with a mentor. And this is what we've done really well in Quebec and in Kapolok, which is one of the 3 schools that we support intensively. And when we do this, we've noticed that our impact is quite clearly measurable when you're looking at the exact same group of students. And we've shared some of these results with the group. I'll leave it at that, and we can add more information as needed. Thank you.
Cathy, did you have anything you wanted to add? That's really interesting, Olubayi, that you guys have created a standardization to measure the impact on the same group of students. That's important and interesting.
Yeah, and then you see, Lisa, our hope is that our internal measurement will then be validated by the national exam, because these kids still have to do the national exam, which for the current cohort will do the exam in March. So we're going to see if, in fact, Quebec will do as well in the national exam as they have done in the internal assessment, which would give a totally external assessment that would make this actually publishable results, because we're comparing 9 different schools, 2 in which there is intensive Kiwimbi assistance, including mentoring and one-to-one discussions on reading, 1 in which there is fairly intensive approach, that's Amagoro Primary, and then the other, and then the other 6 have minimal Kiwimbi contact. In fact, of the 6, 2 of them have no Kiwimbi contact at all. So we are able to actually do this almost like an RCT.
That's very interesting. And did you want to reveal any of your findings so far?
A very big impact in Quebec. And Lisa, I think at some point, if you could project the results we shared with you, you can decide what's a good time to do that, to actually see the really huge impact in Quebec and the Kapolok. And of course, no real impact in Amagoro Primary School that is easy to capture in terms of a change in math and English within 1 year. And we can explain that as well.
And I think it's probably important to understand that the students at Quebec Primary School have been or started out as the most underserved students that Kiwimbi has had an opportunity to work with, correct?
Yes.
Right. Right.
And so to see growth there is very impactful.
Yeah, which we saw in the national exam last year, by the way, because we didn't actually do our own internal measurement for 2020, but in the national exam, there was such a big impact that the population of Quebec virtually doubled. People just simply brought their children there. So there are very many kids in Quebec. They barely have a place to sit. So in some ways, we created a good problem. And we're happy to continue helping these kids to learn to read and write and encourage them to read a lot of books. And it's only through reading that they ever actually have any mastery of English, because outside of class, the language is not English.
And I know that you said that the exam is coming up in March. And can you just explain very briefly if it can be explained briefly, the shift in the academic calendar year that happened because of the 2020 school closure? Then the 2020 exam was given in March of 2021. The 2021 exam will be given in March of 2022. But if I'm right, the school year really begins in January, is that correct? Or maybe...
Not correct this time. It was always January except for COVID. So okay. COVID shifted the school year to begin in April.
And will it get back on track to January again?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yes. Next year, 2023, it goes back to January. So what the government of Kenya has done is basically keep children in school almost continuously to capture the two terms that they missed. There's a trimester system, and 2 of the trimesters were missed in 2020. So one of those trimesters was recaptured last year, and the other one will be recaptured this year. Then the calendar goes back to January, beginning next year. So Kenyan children usually have 3 months off: April, August, and December. This did not happen in 2021 and will not happen this year, because the government wants to make sure that these kids are able to catch up. And so the academic year begins in April. So this is our last semester with the current grade 8s. Then we pick up another team of grade 8s in April, end of March.
Okay, thank you. I knew things had shifted a bit, and it was a little bit confusing for me to keep track of all of that. And another question about the educational system: it's now required that students go on to secondary school, which is a new requirement. And so how is Coimbi adapting to that national government requirement?
No real change, because the requirement is that now 100% of grade 8s must go to grade 9. And this means that people who cannot read and write will go to grade 9. And what Coimbi continues to do is to make sure that we can help these children to learn to read and write, so that they can actually benefit from secondary school education and hopefully go to college after that. So in terms of our strategy to help the children, there is no real change. And in terms of what the Kenya government is really doing, it looks like there's a big change, but in my judgment, there isn't, because the school you go to will still be determined by your grade. If you can't read and write, you go to what is called a sub-county school. And if you have excellent scores, you go to a national school where you are guaranteed to go to college.
So it's still important to keep the programs going, because this test still makes a lot of determinations in a child's future.
Yeah. Yes.
And the other,
go ahead.
The other situation here is that depending on the grades they get, it determines the career they go into. So let's say, for example, the people in the cities in Nairobi have better resources, they do better. They'll end up in better professions. They'll end up in better university doing STEM in big universities. And then people like where we are from, even children who could have made it, because they didn't have the extra help and because they didn't have the resources, end up not making it to this big university. So it could end up that nobody in our area ever makes it to a good career because they've been relegated to lower careers and all of that. So Coimbi's intervention could help the bright students that are coming from our area be able to make it the same as children other places, because it's set. How well you do is what determines your future and your future career, and the career for your community and the outlook for the community here.
Thank you for explaining that. And Cathy, I'm wondering if there has been a requirement for increase in staff to implement these programs that are a little bit more intensive with the children, and how you're handling that.
Okay, so the way we did it, first, the way we came up with this is there's always a silver lining to some of these things. When COVID came along, we were forced to close down, the whole country did. And so we had to come up with different ways of doing things. And that's when we decided to concentrate on the children that were so left behind. And we did a one-on-one mentorship. And we were hoping that by the time the schools open up, these children who are illiterate and are expected to do the grade 8 and go somewhere will be literate and will have better grades and will have caught up with the others. And we realize actually that's right, they do get literate, and we can, as long as we are able to know where the child is. We started a one-on-one mentorship with these children. Now, we started with the smallest of the underserved of the underserved, because they were illiterate. We had 21-year-olds in grade 1, in grade 8, and 24-year-olds in grade 8. So we had to start from somewhere, and we are beginning with kindergarten reading, basically, and basic numeracy. And we realized we are able to take them from 0 to passing. It's not from 0 to exemplary credentials, it's 0 to passing. And that gave us the idea that if we did indeed give children, meet their needs where they are, as opposed to standardizing all the children, then we could do better. And we had to prove it to ourselves that our methods actually work, which we're able to do. And we also had to prove to ourselves that it's possible to take children from illiteracy to literacy in literally 1 year. And so had we just stuck with the standard exam, we would never have known that John can come from 0 to 50. And 50 is like 200%. So that's what we were looking at. And that's what, when Professor is saying apples to apples, is if the child was illiterate and we take them to literacy to literally be able to have a different outlook, then we are making a difference. So it gave us a belief in ourselves, but it also helped us. So that also showed us that the resource we need is teachers. Now, we're not able to concentrate on a big school like Amagoro Primary, which has 100 pupils, but we are able to concentrate on Kidek, which has fewer pupils. So we couldn't stretch. And what we did do, though, is get volunteers, because when COVID was closed, when COVID closed, everybody from the universities came back in the community and were able to reach out to those people. So we are able to expand our staff resource through volunteers. But as soon as universities open up, then they go away. But the volunteerism is what has helped us so far. If we had to rely on just our core staff, we couldn't meet the needs we have.
Thank you for
And then
explaining.
also just to add, Lisa, we used to be able to have a volunteer for a whole month, but again, the universities are doing the exact same thing that the elementary and high schools are doing. So these volunteers are not available because they are also doing 4 semesters instead of 2.
Okay, thanks. Daniel explained to me on a call that the college students who were supported by Kawimbi in their younger years have a really strong commitment to coming back to volunteer whenever they can. And I think that's quite special. So I'd like to just sort of switch gears from the academic programs to the vocational programs. And can you tell me a little bit about what the tailoring students are up to?
Cathy, you can take that.
Right. The tailoring students right now are preparing for their exam. What we have done is, this is a new cohort. So every tailoring exam, after a year, they're able to take their certificate exam. And that is what they're preparing for now. The basic thing that we do is help these tailors make uniforms, because uniforms gives them ready clientele And also because we are well known in the schools, they know exactly where to get them. So right now they're making uniforms, and they're in the middle of their school year, basically trying to sit for their first certification. So they're making uniforms. They've become pretty good at making uniform, but they still have issues with finishing. So we are taking them through the first certification. The next certification will be diploma. The first certification just requires that they do their basics, and that's what they're doing. They have made 100 uniforms, and we are looking to getting them all sold off when the school year begins, because when the school year begins, then people are looking for new uniforms. The new students are getting into school that were in kindergarten. So we are working on that to make sure that they have good sales then, so they can have a sustainable program. Because the main goal of tailoring is that they can get a skill to be able to sustain themselves, but also that the program itself can start funding itself. That is our main goal, and that's what we're working on right now.
And do you make uniforms, or are they making uniforms for one particular school? Because the schools each have a different color uniform, correct?
Right. So we have chosen the biggest school that we have, which is Amagoro, and the two schools that we're in, mostly because we have leverage, and also because the material, is finite. So we have to make uniforms for where we have leverage, and they know that we have those, and they will support us. We support them to support us. So we are hoping that is where they're all aware that we're making uniforms. We went and met with the Parent Teachers Association, the board of the schools, and they are aware that we're making those uniforms. So when we get them ready, and when people are going to the new year, we will remind them again. And so we are hoping to be in the run for that.
That's great. It's a good goal too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the tailoring students feel so accomplished by creating something that is meaningful to others.
They do.
And the carpentry program, how is that going right now?
The carpentry program has one goal: to make desks for the KIDEC. What happened is that the KIDEC kids are very many. And like we said, they are in the underserved. This is an underserved area in general, but these are the underserved. KIDEC school came about because a lot of the children in that area were not going to school at all. So the government decided to open up the school just so they can go somewhere, but they don't fund it, and they don't really think that those kids can actually make it. So they're the last. In fact, there was a time they were closed. So the carpentry stood, when our visitors came to visit from the US, they saw that the kids were sitting on the floor. That is the problem we created, because it was a small school with few students, and then all of a sudden they have this big influx because Kiwimbi is there. And so some of the students, even though they're sitting on the floor, their parents still insist their education is good. And so we're going to keep them there. And you can even see they're in different uniforms because they've come from different schools back into this area school. And so the carpentry program has a goal of making these desks. We've had an issue with trying to get a good instructor, but we found one. We've had to switch about instructors a little bit, but we've found a good instructor, and we're hoping to do that. But this particular project is the baby of for Paul Slozak, who's coming over just to make, he's a patron of carpentry, really, our department. So he's coming over to help with the department and to help with this particular project. So, because what happens is with carpentry, we have to have an instructor that is okay with just making a salary and not making things and selling them in the beginning, because he has baby carpenters. So we finally think we have one that is altruistic enough to do that. So that's what we're doing right now. So our goal is to make this desk so these children can be seated at a desk writing on a surface, and not writing on the floor. That's what we're looking for.
Just for everybody just to keep everybody up to what she meant by Paul Slozak. He's an American friend and supporter of Coimbi who's very skilled in carpentry, and he takes several trips to Coimbi to support the carpentry students, teach them new skills. And as Cathy said, he'll be going back to Coimbe soon.
In about a week.
Great. And
Yes.
I was
And
wondering,
one of his carpentry students, Humphrey, is really doing very well. Paul told us he's the best in handling the equipment, and we've actually seen some of his work. In fact, while waiting for Paul, Humphrey was able to take contracts in the village and make his own money.
oh, that's great. And that's the
Very
goal,
much.
right? For the training
yes.
to send these students off to support themselves and their families. That's wonderful.
Yes.
I'm wondering about classroom space. When the desks are built, now there's so many more students in Quebec than the school probably anticipated. And so does that create another problem, or how is that?
Yes, it creates a problem that we can't solve and will not be solvable, because the Kenya government simply says everybody has to go to school and it's mandatory. So the kids will really be many. In the girls' high school, where I'm the chairman of the board, Amagoro Girls High School, we built extra classrooms last year, and it became almost a mistake, because immediately the classrooms were built with an additional 200 students. So we were expanding our capacity by 60, but we got 200.
Wow.
So it's not going to be solved anytime soon. But for me, obviously, as a teacher, what troubles me is that most of these kids will not pass the national exam. The data is 2 out of 10. So that's why our intervention still becomes very important.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And last time we all met on a call in November, we learned a little bit about a new program you're working on with Radu, who's here today, for art and creating pigments. And I'm interested in an update about that.
Radu himself is here. It's a hit. Radu, the program is amazing.
I'm sorry.
During Christmas, we had a lot of people from Nairobi coming to visit the library and the museum, and they found children making the pigments, using them. It was quite exciting. So we can't thank you enough for the idea. This was really Radu's idea, that instead of always imagining we must buy pigments, that we could make them. Radu, we should invite you to talk to us.
Can you hear me? Because I think I have a problem with my microphone. Oh, great. Because usually I
Yes.
have to Zoom issues. If you can hear me, I'm just going to say that so far the progress has been amazing. I think the pigment part has already been embraced, and sources of colored earth have been located and are already using them. I've recently shared, we've had a meeting not long ago between November and now, and talking about dyes. I've shared some online resources that they can look into and find ways of using local plants to make dyes. The issue with that would be how to fix them. As we were already asked, and then dyeing is not my area of expertise, but I've shared quite a lot of resources. What I came across in the meanwhile, I think the next step would be how to make paper, because paper is very expensive if you buy it. And I remember from our time there, the only paper available was yellow, bright yellow manila paper, which no one would want. But children were excited to use. And I just came across a recipe until you start cultivating linen and beat it into a pulp and make paper. Discards, I mean, cotton and linen, natural fabric rags that you're not using can be made into a pulp. The only thing you would need would be a blender, and that can work. I mean, up there, it's very simple. It can be done. I'm going to put it in an email and share it. So hopefully that would be some sort of an addition to the art program, so they can be even closer to autonomy in terms of their materials, because they're already autonomous artists in terms of what they're doing. And it was extraordinary to see how they used the bougainvillea to make purple and immediately found yellow earths. And yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Thank you for that update. And Daniel shared with me that there's a weekly art lesson with the students in Quebec, the grade 4 and 5 students, using the pigments that they've created. So it's going to be really exciting to watch the program grow and develop.
And for the kids see it almost as a miracle that that these things just come out of a plant or come out of soil. So it's just amazing to watch their faces and the excitement around the creativity.
That's a really exciting program. And speaking about plants, can you tell us about the bananas? How are they doing in our agronomy program?
We in the agronomy program, we've tried a few things. One which we did at the beginning was to plant trees. So there's some degree of agroforestry, which has worked quite well because trees are resilient. And then we decided last year to plant bananas. And it was actually good news because this the last 2 months have been the first time in 4 years that Kenya has fallen into a drought. We've had really good rains in Kenya for the last approximately 5 years or so. But in the last 2 months, there was a serious drought. It got very dry and vegetables began to disappear, but the bananas were resilient enough because the banana is a kind of tree. It's not a woody tree, but it's a tree. So the bananas are alive and well. Everything else is either dead or almost died in terms of plants.
And I know that the cadet students were working on sort of a kitchen garden. Has that been negatively affected by the drought?
Yes.
Very much
Yeah.
so. Nothing is growing there. And the whole of Amagoro is so dry. I know the people who visited Amagoro in the past have been seeing a green Amagoro. It's so dry in a few months that there's nothing, absolutely nothing that can grow in the vegetable garden. The other thing that happened with this drought is even the water that comes from our boreholes dried. So we couldn't even water. Most people can't afford to water. They can just look for water for themselves as opposed to just watering. So that has been a major issue for us this time. So we couldn't grow any vegetables at all. And the soil is actually quite sandy. It is not loamy, it's sandy. So it's very porous here around Amagoro. So it can't hold on to any moisture whatsoever. So the bananas and that kind of, and the cassava, which is why the indigenous people have always grown cassava here, are the only ones that survived. Everything else went by the wayside. Cabbage is coming from central Kenya because we don't have any more greens.
Wow. And what about drinking water? Is there a shortage for fresh drinking water then?
There's been
not for drinking. Yeah. At least for Kiwimbi, because we have the for Kiwimbi, no, because we get water from a borehole. So Kiwimbi sort of became the main drinking place for children and even adults. So we actually had to we have a guard. There's a night guard who protects Kiwimbi. We had to ask the night guard to do day shift so that the water would be limited to drinking only, so that people don't carry it away. Because we have basically thousands of people coming to drink water, and some of them began carrying water away, which we can't afford. So that's what's been going on.
But there's a problem of drinking water in Amagoro. At Kiwimbi, not so. But in Amagoro, there's a problem for there's no drinking water, which is why Prof is saying we can only allow people to drink it, but we can't allow for them to carry it away, to take it home.
Okay. Wow. That must be kind of hard to limit what people need, but if you don't, then there isn't enough for everybody.
Yes.
And let's see. We have a question about COVID and vaccines. And are children allowed, or are the vaccines open to children? How is COVID affecting life in Amagoro?
No, not yet. Okay, go ahead. No, not yet.
No, I said go ahead. Yeah.
They do say that young people can have it, but they're not allowing children yet. And even for the young people who are supposed to have it, it's a month off before you can get your vaccination. So there are not that many people looking for the vaccination, but for the ones looking, it's not enough. So that's been the problem, is that they will announce, oh, go to the hospital and get immunization. And a lot of the employers require it. So, you just don't know when your employer is going to require. So a lot of people go just to make sure that they get them, but they're not available. So we have AstraZeneca, that's what we're getting here, but it's not available for everybody. But no, it's not children, not yet. There's no discussion about that.
And there's a new decision on vaccines in Kenya, which I only found out yesterday. Somebody was coming to visit me from Congo, and when they go to the airport, they were told they can't fly to Kenya. You can no longer enter Kenya unless you're vaccinated.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, COVID causes things to change so quickly, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Let's see. Would you like to share the news about Mrs. Nyong'o and the relationship that's been developing? If you, for those of you who weren't a part of our golf event last September, we were honored to have Mrs. Dorothy Nyong'o attend and receive an honorary award. And she is the wife of the governor of Kisumu County in Kenya. And she is the mother of Academy Award winning actress Lupita Nyong'o. And Lupita is also an author who wrote a really special, wonderful children's book. So we've become acquainted with Dorothy, Mrs. Nyong'o. And do you have some information to share about that relationship?
Dorothy has visited us in Amagoro, the way many people on this call have, and she really, really loved what she saw. So she's going to come back again either this month or early next month, because she wants to work with us on replicating what we're doing at Kiwimbi in Amagoro in Kisumu County. So we're actively communicating with her, and there's a really good chance that she will and her family will put in an effort into funding something similar in Kisumu County. We would give them we'll basically share with them our methods, our IP, and they would raise the money, and we would find a way to collaborate with them, which was something that we're very happy about, because Kiwimbi has always thought of itself as a model that other people should emulate. And so Dorothy and her family may actually be the first people to implement this. We've had people visit us from other parts of Kenya and from Nigeria who are also working on a plan to replicate what we're doing. Thank you.
It's exciting. I'm interested in watching that relationship develop as well. So I'm going to go to the chat and look at some of the questions that people have asked. We have a question about what can Kiwimbi here in the United States do to support? Sylvie, would you mind sort of explaining your question? I'm sorry, I think I'm not sure exactly what you mean.
Okay. When Olubayi was speaking of, and Kathleen, I'm sorry, both of you, hi, by the way, speaking of the mentor program, I was wondering what can Kiwimbi US do? And I think Olubayi responded by saying it can be done remotely, but could we also become an organization that has volunteer trips, regular volunteer trips, as in, rotating volunteer program of American teachers that would go and help out with this process. I may be barking up the wrong tree, by the way, but I think it would be a way for us Americans to, be more involved and feel a very close connection with the program, provided this program is useful. That was my question.
Thank you for explaining that.
And my response, thanks, Sylvie. Happy New Year. We've actually had individual volunteers over the last 9 years or so. We've had people who have actually come to stay. In fact, at the beginning, William Rathgeb actually came and stayed for almost a whole year. We've had several other people who have come in for 1 or 2 months. And obviously what you're saying is, could it be a more organized program where we have groups of people coming? And we're open to this. And the Kiwimbi board and Kiwimbi International and Kiwimbi Kenya will actually continue discussing this possibility. But what's been also interesting, that's been really an impact of COVID, a positive one, is that we began to actually imagine that somebody could be sitting in London like Radu and actually guiding children in Amagoro, and it's actually happening successfully. We also currently have a student in New Jersey. His name is Keshav, Jaya's son, Keshav. Jaya is a supporter of Kiwimbi. Keshav is actually curating science videos for helping grade 8 students in Amagoro to prepare for the national exam. So what we did was send to him the curriculum. Then he's able to match the curriculum to online resources that are free, and then he has discussions with these students on weekends. My niece, who's going to school in Italy, has been doing the same thing for almost a year with the children in Quebec. She meets them physically in Amagoro. Then when she's in Italy, she continues conversations with them on weekends. So there's actually a chance to do more of that, both remotely and also face-to-face when people can travel post-COVID.
Right. And Sylvie, the other thing is there's nothing like a person resource. No matter how well anybody can do, if you're able to come to Amagoro and join our team and we go out in the field, that is so valuable, because they can tell we don't have enough bodies to do this. So if somebody is able to come, or we can have a trench of volunteers coming and they can do this, it would be amazing for the children, because we are helping grade 8, and grade 8 just has that 1 year to determine their future, their career. So if it's possible for us to be able to expand and reach more children, even reach deeper inside our own children cohort, it would be so great. So people resource is the most valuable thing we can have.
Allow me to add, because, and this is a little bit different, but I have a friend who for 30 years spent every summer in China, and I said it's a little bit different of a model, teaching English to teachers of English to correct their accents and improve their reading capacity. So
Wow.
I wonder, yes, and she is now 85 years old and has decided that, well, that was traveling was sort of a problem, but she would be gone for 2 months every summer. Very interesting feedback from her. I don't know if there are any organizations here in the United States that would have a program like that could come and send volunteers to you and support you. Anybody? Carol.
I'm not aware.
I'm not familiar with that.
I only know of some programs that, but it's mainly on the medical field. So they do medical tourism. They go to Kenya and other places, and maybe for a whole month, they will set up, let's say in Amagoro, and people will come. They treat basic diagnosis. Some they will do referrals for them to go to other places. So on the medical side, I know some of those programs. I don't know whether they exist in other areas.
I know we've had Fulbright scholars come to Amagoro before. We had a succession of Fulbright scholars coming, but that's the most I've ever seen. Peace Corps and Fulbright scholars. When I first came to Amagoro, this place was full of them. In fact, they helped me when we were setting up our library. They really helped. They were an army of Peace Corps and Fulbright scholars here, and they really helped. But because that is another NGO, you see, if they're coming as Fulbright scholars, or they're coming as Peace Corps, then we don't have to fund them, you see. And we are stretched so thin as far as funds are concerned that we are not able to expand. We would love to hire more teachers in Kenya, in our own organization, and we just don't have that capacity. So if it's possible to get people from other places to just come that are funding themselves, absolutely, like this Peace Corps or the Fulbright Scholar or any other NGO. But right now there are none, and since COVID, there really isn't anybody. We're the only game in town now.
But you just mentioned the Peace Corps and Fulbright. Is there anyone on the board that would want to approach these organizations and find out I think I always have a fundraiser hat on. I mean, it's just one of my shortcomings. Yes, you can smile, Olubayi. But from my perspective, this is one way to create a group of people that would be engaged with you, even after they come back for years to come.
That's right.
That is one way to grow your organization into a powerhouse. I'm going to ask around, but if anybody on the board, I'm not an educator, so if anybody on the board has any idea, as you all know, I am very engaged with another organization that gives grants to women around the world, and for several years, we have had a very large program with the Peace Corps. So I will volunteer to ask them how they did that and what's involved, and whether it would make sense for you. But if anyone on the board could try to also go after that, I'll volunteer to see what we can do about this. Now, how bad is the COVID right now, guys? How bad is that situation? Yeah.
Before we switch, I think Lynn maybe had something to say about what you were commenting on.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, right now, the Peace Corps is not operating in Kenya. They withdrew a number of years ago, which has been really disappointing for us because we got a lot of help from them. And we are actively working on internship programs where we get kids over there. Like, we sent from Hobart Williams Smith 2 interns a few years ago, and still engaged in that. And as Cathy mentioned, the whole program. We had an entrepreneurship endeavor that was a volunteer, but as Cathy mentioned, it's mostly a matter of funding. So we're happy to work with any organization that we think that will work with us. And we're also, while John and I were over there the last time, we met with a representative from the USAID, which Quimby doesn't really qualify for directly because that's a large organization and looks at other large countrywide organizations. But she did give us ideas about how to get more support from organizations that she's working with. So we're actively working on that sort of thing. COVID has made a huge difference, and so some of that's on pause right now, and we hope with a new president and changes in Kenya, maybe Peace Corps will get back there, because that was a huge loss, I think. But the first time we went over, we met with a Peace Corps representative who told us about St. Thomas Amagoro Girls Secondary School, which is where Olubayi is now chairman of the board. So a lot has changed.
I'm sure.
Because of that networking.
Yeah. I'm also thinking of universities. Teachers do not, PhD students, do not necessarily work in the summer or teach in the summer. To have just a pilot program, I'm not talking about having hundreds of people, but just to try to get in there with your respective universities where you come from.
That's a great idea.
Work. I don't know. I mean, as I said, I wasn't even educated in this country. I was educated in French. So I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm trying to get creative, creative thinking based on what I know. And as I said, I can ask a few friends who are teachers and, PhD, that kind of things.
That's great, Sylvie. Thank you.
The other thing is that maybe Prof. Olubayi can speak about Strathmore. We have a university that we were targeting just before COVID hit, and they had agreed to bring a slew of volunteers, and we had worked on that. In fact, our first Kiwimbi Kenya Karamu was held at Strathmore University, and they had said they will bring their students, they still want to do that actually, and Prof can speak more about that, because that is one thing that we realized we could do, and through the relationship that Prof Olubayi has in Nairobi, we were able to reach to the point where they were just about to come to Amagoro. So we are still waiting, because the education system in Kenya has been so badly hit that even the universities don't know where they are yet. So they don't have that rhythm they usually have for their volunteers, but they had identified Kiwimbi as where they want to come.
Great.
So that is another, you're right, Sylvie, that once people come over here, then we are building the body of people involved and to help us grow.
Yeah.
Right.
And I have
Sylvie,
oh, sorry,
it's
go ahead.
It's a really good idea, Sylvie. So we'll continue to pursue it both for Kenya and the US. And
Great.
Paul, who visited Amagoro recently, is actually a Peace Corps man of many, many years. So maybe we should invite Paul to comment. He might know something about the Peace Corps that we don't. Hi,
Hey.
Paul.
Hey, good to see you. And again,
Good to see you too.
my thanks to Cathy and Olubayi for being great hosts a few weeks ago. I do want to say that I do have a background with the Peace Corps and would be happy to make some contacts. The Peace Corps Association itself is now, it has new life again. It's ramping up again. And there's the possibility that I could reach out to them and ask them some of these questions. As far as volunteers in the field, that's going to take a little while, I think, because of COVID.
Yes.
And that begins to be under control. I anticipate Peace Corps programs starting up again in relatively safe areas in the world.
Wonderful.
Great.
There we go.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul.
Oh, and I have to show you this.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
This was made by the tailoring program at Coimbe.
Can you put it up again?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
Oh,
this
it's
is beautiful. I
great.
want one of them. Gorgeous.
And I was in the tailoring class and challenged some of the kids. I said, I'm only going to be here another day. Do you think you could make something in one day? And they took the challenge and they made something in one day.
Congratulations, that's wonderful.
That's beautiful.
Wow.
What a special memento. And
Right.
Yeah, those kids are talented. They do wonderful things.
Right.
any other questions that anybody would like to ask Cathy and Olubayi?
Well, last question is what's happening with COVID? Because I have a trip that's pending on that. So
there is COVID, yes, but for whatever reason, the death rates are really low. I barely know anyone who has died.
Right. And as far as
your incidence is very low, I know that, but the question is, traveling on a plane for 20 hours with a mask on is a daunting thing for me. So anyway,
I was quite scared, Sylvie. I was quite scared when I was traveling to the US, but I was more scared about the situation in the US, mostly because I didn't know what was going to happen once I was on the plane and I land. But over here, they are very stringent as far when you come into the country. I think they feel like the COVID situation in the country is a bit stable, but that the influx of visitors is what can change that situation. So they're very tough on the borders now, and they're very tough on who's coming in and how they're coming in. But as far as Amagoro is concerned, they seem everything seems to have gone back to normal. Now, my son and the school, when you enter the school van, you still have to wear a mask. When you're going to the grocery store, they still check your temperature. The supermarket, they still check your temperature, and you still have to sanitize, and you still have to wear a mask to be allowed inside any crowded places, churches, places like those. And now they've gazetted that wearing a mask is a law. So if you are found not wearing a mask, it's a problem. However, so that it's been gazetted. So they're very serious, especially in the big cities where it's more crowded. We are rural, so they're trying to keep the rural areas as stable as possible. So the rural areas are pretty stable. People are getting COVID, I think, but they don't suffer the ill symptoms they seem to suffer elsewhere. I'm not sure why.
Just was speaking up again. Just wanted to say that I am still in Kenya because I've tested positive 3 times and could not leave a couple of weeks ago when I had planned to. So I'm still here, still testing, hoping for negative. And
Okay.
in the meantime, hope to go on a safari.
Welcome back. We are still here. We are still here. Please come back.
Okay.
Maurice, did you want to say something?
No, especially for Paul, this is the best time for safari. It's not too crowded, so you have the whole get back for yourself.
Okay.
Yes, and hopefully, Paul, you're feeling well. Hopefully, you're feeling well.
You look good.
Yeah, for Cathy, what's the typical dry season in Amagor? I know in our area, January and February is typically pretty dry, but then the rainy season comes in March, and peak one is typically around April. Does it last longer than that in Amagoro, or when do you guys expect
Well, as you're speaking, the heaviest rain fell last night.
Oh, wow.
So we don't know whether it's going to continue, but the heaviest rain I have seen in a while fell last night. It was so dry here that you couldn't close any windows. It was hot at night. God turns on the air conditioning about 4 a.m. For just a short period of time. But it's been that way. However, usually January, December, January, February, the same thing as in your area, is usually dryish, but not as dry as it has been until the boreholes dry up and the wells dry up. So, global warming had been rather nice for us because it gave us rain continually for some reason. The pattern changed, but now it looks like we are back to our good old-fashioned drought season.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's usually the same as your area. It's usually the same.
Carol, did you want to say something? No? Okay, sorry. Anybody else? We have about 3 minutes left. So if anyone else has a question or a comment or something they would like to learn more about. All right.
Okay, I have a quick question then. Sorry, how are you going to finance a new project with Mrs. Youngo?
The
We're
project with
hoping that
Mrs.
No, go ahead, Cathy.
Okay, the project with Mrs. Nyong'o is coming from her side. We are helping her. So we are hoping because she has more resources. This is also our way of trying to get in with, Mrs. Nyong'o is connected. So we are hoping she's bigger than we are. So I'm not thinking that she's looking to have our expertise in having a going concern, our expertise in getting the community buy-in and becoming part, because Kiwimbi is really part of the community in a big way. So when we asked the community to join in, she was quite surprised at how the community carries us. So she would like the same thing to happen. So we're not really looking to fund her, the other way around, really. Yeah. But I'd like to extend an invitation to Paul. Paul, before you leave, come back to Amagoro. Feel better.
Yes.
Come back to Amagoro.
Come back.
Sylvie, we are waiting for you.
That
We
would be
remember
good, and I'm
coming into
thinking of asking for Kenyan citizenship now.
Yes.
You're most welcome.
Well, thank you all so much. And as always, we rely on your donations. So you can support the programs that Cathy and Olubayi are doing such an amazing job of implementing there in Kenya by going to our website, or you can text THOUGHT to 41444. And I thank you all for your time and wish you a wonderful weekend. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. And thanks for supporting Kiwimbi.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Sure, we do.
Good luck, Paul. I hope you enjoy your time,
Get
feel
well,
well,
Paul.
and get to come home
Thank you.
soon.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. See you.
Bye.
Bye.